We are at a crossroad. There are so many threats, so many risks, and if we don't get them under control, we risk a kind of explosive situation.
Massive.
Human link.
Next week, the richest and most powerful people on Earth will meet at an event in Davos, Switzerland, an event called the World Economic Forum, or WEF. The WEF looms large in the public imagination these days, viewed by some as a conspiratorial organization determined to control all of us. So what exactly is the WEF? Where did it come from? What does it represent? And are the so-called conspiracy theorists right? The World Economic Forum was first established in 1971, led by a German engineer, economist, and professor with a master's from Harvard. His name was Klaus Schwab. Schwab was the originator of a theory of governance and markets he called stakeholder capitalism, defined in opposition to shareholder capitalism. Shareholder capitalism was a term coined by economist Milton Friedman, suggesting that businesses ought to focus on returns to their investors. As Friedman argued, quote, businessmen believe that they are defending free enterprise when they claim that business is not merely concerned with profit, but also with promoting desirable social ends. In fact, they are, or would be if they or anyone else took them seriously, preaching pure and unadulterated socialism. Schwab argued that businesses ought to promote just that, answerability, not to the people who bought and owned their shares, but to the world at large. Schwab wrote, quote, a company serves not only its shareholders, but all its stakeholders, employees, customers, suppliers, local communities, and society at large. This philosophy, of course, means that those who control corporations ought to act as philosopher kings, answerable to no one but their own perceptions of moral duty. Unsurprisingly, this particular argument is attractive to those who love the idea of top-down command and control. In 1971, when Schwab launched the WEF, it was called the European Management Symposium. By 1975, the European Management Forum had attracted 860 participants, including the CEOs and chairmen of the largest European companies. The European Management Forum also entered into official cooperation with the United Nations Industrial Development Organization. As the WEF website brags, quote, after just 5 years, the forum had gained acceptance at the highest levels of business and government. While not advocating policy or strategy, the forum had become a respected organization that served as a valuable platform for business, government, civil society, and other stakeholders to confer and collaborate. In 1987, the European Management Forum changed its name to the World Economic Forum, the WEF. Today, the WEF hosts the most important people on Earth.
We have business, of course, as a very important audience, and we have politics. We have continuous partnerships with many governments around the world. And of course, we have NGOs, we have trade unions, we have all those different parts.
Media, of course.
And very important experts and scientists and academia.
And those people gather to coordinate their activities in changing the world.
The future is not just happening. The future is built by us, by a powerful community as you here in this room. We have the means to improve the states of the world.
We'll get to more on the WEF in just one moment. If all this makes you a little bit nervous about the future of finance, well, maybe you might want to think about investing a little bit in gold. The dollar continues to lose buying power quicker than wages can increase. How are you protecting your savings these days? Consider diversifying with gold from the Birch Gold Group. For decades, gold has been the choice of investors and central banks to hedge against inflation. Gold can play a role in diversifying your savings, and Birch Gold can help you create a well-thought-out and balanced investment strategy. They'll help you convert an existing IRA or 401k into an IRA in gold without paying a penny out of pocket. This month only, when you open a gold IRA with Birch Gold, you'll get a free signed copy of my book, The Authoritarian Moment. But you need to text BEN to 989898 to qualify. Birch Gold has been the exclusive gold company of the Daily Wire for the past 7 years. That's where I get my gold. You can go there too. Text BEN to 989898, protect your savings, claim your eligibility for a free signed copy of The Authoritarian Moment. Smart investors diversify, especially in the phase of top-down experts who want to restructure the American economy. It turns out you might want to be a little bit safer than just leaving your future in their hands. Birch Gold can help you out right there. Text BEN to 989898. Protect your savings today. So, what is the broader WEF agenda? In June 2020, in the middle of the COVID-19 global crisis, Schwab wrote a piece on the WEF website. It was titled, "Now is the time for a great reset." In it, he said, quote, "The world must act jointly and swiftly to revamp all aspects of our societies and economies, from education to social contracts and working conditions. Every country, from the United States to China, must participate, and every industry, from oil and gas to tech, must be transformed. In short, we need a great reset of capitalism. We must build entirely new foundations for our economic and social systems. That great reset would require heavy-handed top-down power in pursuit of environmental redistributionism, which would require massive social restructuring. As Schwab himself says, quote, "It's hard to comprehend how the move toward environmental sustainability could take place without a concomitant move toward social sustainability. Social sustainability is, of course, a euphemism for social engineering and the overthrow of market economies. That's why people like Greta Thunberg show up at Davos to pledge their lives to overthrowing capitalism."
What we refer to as normal is an extreme system. It is a system defined by colonialism, imperialism, oppression, and genocide by the so-called global north.
What the WEF isn't so clear about is that the Great Reset would involve great suffering, like a lot of suffering. Schwab, in one of his books, quotes a Malaysian businessman and founder of the Global Institute for Tomorrow, named Chandran Nair, who explained, quote, "I think the idea that by 2050, 6 billion Asians can or should aspire to live like Europeans and Americans through a consumption, resource-intense model is essentially a big lie. We can't deal with it through pious statements and market instruments, but with draconian rules. And those rules won't be provided by markets, but only by institutions of society. Call it the state. Lowered living standards enforced by government hand in glove with corporations. That's the message."
Asian governments need to reject the Western model. They need to move beyond the rhetoric of liberal, democratic, capitalist systems which say that individual rights are sacrosanct.
All of this will usher in what Schwab calls the Fourth Industrial Revolution. According to Schwab, this Fourth Industrial Revolution will be all about integrating into a big data world driven by government and business. It will involve, quote, "a fusion of technologies that is blurring the lines between the physical, digital, and biological spheres."
One of the features of this fourth industrial revolution is that it doesn't change what we are doing, but it changes us.
And that, of course, will require even more top-down design and control. So, what will this great reset, this new revolution, look like? Well, it could look like replacement of traditional food sources by, say, alternative protein sources like bugs. The Davos Agenda for 2022 included an article explaining, quote, "Insects are an excellent alternative source of protein and significantly reduce our carbon footprint." How exciting! It could look like widespread neurotechnological brain enhancements, as Schwab suggests will happen. Or maybe it'll just look like the end of private property ownership altogether. In 2016, the WEF released a video predicting that by 2030, you'll own nothing and you'll be happy. Almost certainly, the new revolution will look like top-down social engineering by the big brains, all in the name of smoothing out the bumps of technological change. Regulators will work hand in glove with big business to work out the rules for your life. As Schwab writes, quote, "Governments and regulatory agencies will need to collaborate closely with business and civil society." Notice that at no point in this proposed structure does either liberty or representative democracy really play a role. That's because liberty might suggest the irrelevance of the honchos at the WEF. It might suggest that they themselves are the obstructive force in the way of human happiness. And representative democracy is too messy and slow for the fast-changing world the WEF wants. You need regulators working with business to change the rules at a moment's notice. The only solution, according to the WEF, is the very important people at the WEF, working in the name of a vague general will that never requires actual accountability to anyone. If all of this sounds frightening, that's because it is. The arrogance of a business and governmental elite seeking to control all of us is absolutely breathtaking. The policies discussed at Davos shape the elite caste in nearly all Western countries. When you hear about the end of carbon-based fossil fuels, or global tax regimes, or corporate governmental cooperation, a lot of that is coming from Davos and the World Economic Forum. When people talk about the globalists, the folks they most often mean are people like Klaus Schwab. And when those globalists get together at Davos, understand the ideas that they are discussing will have real-world effect on you, your business, your church, and your family.